Hey guys, and happy September. I am very excited to start a new series with you. We are going to be exploring the world of sewing, small scale doll clothing. So today's video is just going to be an introduction to materials and different things that you'll need to continue following any of the tutorials that I do. Just a little background on me. I did go to college for fashion design and merchandising, so as far as a lot of things that I will be using and not be using, you guys will kind of be like, oh, well, what about glue? What about fray check? I won't be using that sort of stuff just because I couldn't all throughout college. You glued a seam together or a hem or whatever, you were guaranteed to get a C instant. You just didn't do it. You closed your seams. We had one class where we learned how to use a serger. Some people use sergers all the time for bigger projects, but for the most part, if you closed your seams, the teachers were very happy. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is notions. So notions are your basic sewing materials, guys, things that you just kind of need. First things first, needles. So you guys will definitely need needles, particularly small needles like this. So you want to try to get the smallest needles possible because you don't want to leave holes that you can see in the thread. Okay. I won't be doing a lot of hand sewing, guys. I will only hand sew when it's necessary because I loathe hand sewing. I had a wonderful experience of making my own bias tape and blind stitch hemming and all kinds of fun things. So I don't like to hand sew when I don't have to. Next thing is pins, guys. So we will use pins initially, but I'm actually going to be showing you guys how to baste stitch things, because when you baste stitch, it's a lot easier than having the pins in the way while you're trying to make something. And with small scale clothes, baste stitching is going to be your friend. Another thing is pin cushions, but I actually don't have a pin cushion anymore. I think I have a tomato somewhere, but couldn't tell you where it is. I actually use this magnetic pin base that I got from Joann's. So this is really handy for when you spill your pins, guys. Basically, it's the best thing on the planet. If you want to get a pin cushion, go ahead and get a pin cushion, but I highly suggest getting one of these too. It'll save your feet later. Next thing you'll need is some thread. So I have two different brands of thread that I have used. I use dual duty all-purpose Coats & Clark thread, and I use Gutterman thread as well. Both can be found at most sewing stores. And I use 100% polyester thread. There is all kinds of different threads out there, guys, but if you don't have the right machine or the right fabric, those threads can really ruin a project, ruin a machine. I don't use cotton threads. Cotton threads tend to pull apart very easily, and silk thread is just so spendy. So spendy. I don't know anybody who just uses silk threads. So there you go. Let's talk fasteners, closures, and all that good stuff. So one thing that you're gonna need is zippers, guys. You could just head down to your local store and grab a zipper and cut it to size, which, whatever's easiest for you. I use two kinds of zippers. I like invisible zippers, and then there's the basic all-purpose zippers. So these are the two types of zippers that I will be using within this series. So we've got three different size of buttons here. I've got 3mm, 4mm, and 5mm buttons. These are more true to scale for your small scale Obitsu 11 dolls and such. These two are more for your 1/6 scale dolls, but you can totally use these on your smaller dolls, your Nindos and things like that. If you want to do accent buttons, something really crazy, and you want the buttons to be really huge, these are really great. You do have to hand sew these though, guys. You cannot put these through a sewing machine. So if you have the button foot for your sewing machine, not gonna work. D-rings, guys. D-rings are really good if you're wanting to, like, you know, tighten something up a little bit, use it for a belt, all kinds of things you can use D-rings for. This is a little buckle. As you can tell, it looks like it's more for a belt. You see the little knob right there. But you know what? You can use this for shoes, belts, an accent for the back of a jacket, anything really. This is the type of buckle that you'll want to use for, I mean, mainly overalls. I don't really know what else you would use this buckle for, to be honest. I couldn't find something this size in a small enough scale for like Obitsu 11 or Nendo's. You could still use something like this and kind of play on it just being kind of huge, but mostly this would work really well for 1/6 scale dolls. Tiny teeny snaps. So you don't have to get snaps this tiny. These are 4mm snaps. I got this tiny just for the simple fact that I wanted to make sure when I'm doing closures and things for the Nendo dolls or Q-Posh that it's not too bulky and can't be like seen and doesn't overtake the actual fabric. Another great closure, ultra thin Velcro, guys. So this is going to be your lifeblood when you're making dolls. It's the quickest thing to sew. It's the easiest to put in. You'll find it in a lot of doll clothing. It's just easier to work with, and you don't have to worry about with like snaps like them. You are going to need things to cut stuff with, guys. So we've got scissors. Scissors are basic. These are EK Success. Cut paper. I cut everything with these scissors. These are huge, and these are sewing shears. So shears are usually specifically for a type of material. These are sewing shears. They're made for fabric. You don't specifically need this brand, this type looking sewing shear. You can go to any sewing store, and one brand that I know of is Fiskars. Really great brand, really dependable brand, perfect for just starting out. These are more of on a professional level. The only reason I have them is because my teacher in college got this giant bulk discount thing, and I worked my butt off at the restaurant that I worked at to be able to afford them. So there's that. These are smaller sewing shears. So I am going to recommend that you guys use these smaller scissors if you can find them. Not necessarily this brand, but just smaller sewing shears, because it's going to be a lot easier on you. This is because with these, when you're trying to get into little corners and doing darts and things, it's easier to use the smaller scissors than the bigger scissors, unless you're one of those amazing people that can use big scissors beautifully. And you know, if you are, then I am jealous of you. Thread clippers. So this is a really quick, easy way. You know, you just gotta clip your thread, call it a day. These work really well for just pretty much any project, especially smaller projects. Then you can't necessarily get your scissors in and you're worried about like cutting the fabric. Seam ripper, guys, lifeblood. Especially when you first start off sewing, you're going to use these seam rippers a lot. You'll look at your fabric and go, crud, I have the right side and the wrong side together, not the right side and the right side, or just not the wrong side and the wrong side. Or you sewed something wrong, or you sewed something backwards, whatever. You will need seam rippers, trust me, guys. Trims and tapes are something else that you'll need. So this is elastic. There is thinner elastic, guys. I just don't know where mine is. So this is the thinnest elastic I could find to show you. You can always cut your elastic as well. So I will definitely do a video on cutting elastic, but also, you know, finding the right size elastic. Rick rack and ribbon is also really good for trims and things. You can find thinner ribbon out there. I just don't have any. I haven't had anything that I would sew and need super thin ribbon for. You'll need tools for marking on your fabric when you're using your patterns and things. Marking darts and all that fun stuff. So, oops, that just fell out of me. So first we have tailor's chalk. This is really handy. I actually prefer to use the tailor's chalk. I feel that it cleans the best and it's easy. It's the easiest to get off the fabric. So I personally use tailor's chalk. There are water soluble fabric marker pens that will erase with water. I have personally found that these don't always wash out. So use them at your own risk, caution. And then there are the fabric pencils. I don't like using the pencils. I personally feel that the pencils tend to, depending on the fabric, kind of like rip it or kind of like give the fabric a little bit of rough area where you mark. So I personally don't like to use these, but I have them because they were required when I was in college. So they're in a drawer. So that's it for our marking stuff. You'll need tools to measure. So this is a measuring tape, guys. This is really good to have measuring tape with you. You can even find measuring tape that's actual fabric. That's even nicer because then you can actually pin it to your fabric that you're sewing and make your markings a little more accurate if that's what you're going for. There's also sewing gauges to measure. And a ruler is always handy to have around. So there's that. You will most definitely need an iron, guys, some sort of iron. There are smaller like travel irons that you can get for like a reasonable price. There are these tiny little craft irons that you can also invest in. I have heard that those are hit or miss, so I personally have never invested in one. I don't think I ever will because a basic iron works just fine. Okay guys, let's talk fabric. You can use whatever fabric you want. I'm gonna go over a few fabrics that I will definitely use within my tutorials. Some everybody can use, some you might wanna give it a few tries, few outfits before you try to use this type of fabric. This is your basic cotton, 100% cotton. These are called fat quarters. A lot of people use them for quilting and such. This is perfect for practicing. They're reasonably priced, easy to find. You can find super cute patterns in them as well. Although I will say sometimes patterns are a little too big because, you know, they're not necessarily made for dolls, but you can find some pretty decent small scale patterns in the fat quarter section. Novelty fabrics, guys. This is called novelty or licensed fabrics. So these are usually just cottons and they've got characters and all kinds of fun stuff in them. I will say that you're not always going to find novelty fabrics in small enough scale to work with the smaller dolls like Obitsu 11 or Nendoroid or anything like that, but you just might find some licensed fabrics that are small enough for your dolls. You never know. It's always good to keep an eye out and look. Linen is a really good, nice, lightweight fabric. It's a little lighter than, well, depending on the linen, it's a little lighter than the cotton, but basically sews the same way. Sometimes a little stronger. There's different textures of linens and things out there. So linen is also a really good fabric to have. Denim, guys, denim is gonna be your best friend. You know, I mean, for one, everybody's got a pair of jeans that they don't love anymore. And as long as your denim isn't too thick on your jeans, and the reason being why I say thick is because when you go to sew it or hem it or anything like that, it's gonna get really bulky and it will bulge out and it won't necessarily curve nicely like this does right here. This lays really nicely when you wanna, look at that hem. Denim. You wanna make sure you're using a thin denim fabric. You can find any kind of denim at a store as well, but you know, everybody's got an old pair of jeans. Tulle. Tulle is a fun fabric, guys. You can make tutus, you can do crillions, you can do like unders, you can do layering for skirts, all kinds of things. So you want to make sure you are using tulle and not netting though. Netting has the bigger holes and it tends to be a lot stiffer. Now, again, for whatever project you're working for, you can use netting if you want to, but for the smaller scale dolls, netting not always the best choice. Another fabric that works well is Lycra. Lycra is a really nice, strong, sturdy fabric. It's stretchy. It's pretty like decent and easy to sew with. I do recommend Lycra fabrics when you're wanting to do something fun or funky or make any kind of crazy dresses. These 3 fabrics are awesome, but not easy to work with. We've got organzas, and we've got 2 different types of organza, and then a rayon polyester. So these silkier, smoother fabrics are a lot harder to work with. You've got to have like the right thin needles for your sewing machine, and you have to have a steadier hand when you are sewing them together, and you've kind of got to make sure that you are doing it correctly, i.e. having the right side of the fabric next to the right side of the fabric, or wrong side next to the wrong side, whatever you're sewing, however you're sewing, because when you go to seam rip this fabric, it tends to tear. So this is a fabric that works really well with these dolls. Again, you want to hold off on this fabric if you are new to sewing. Lastly, let's talk about a book. So this is a really good guide to have just in your like life guide. It's very useful for you. It shows how to measure different pattern sizes, how to make patterns in here. It's just like a basic nice book to have. It also has a section on fabrics, fabric types, how they should feel and look. So if you're new to sewing and you're kind of lost, this is a really good book. Now, not like the perfect guide for sewing small, because there are a lot of things that you do with people clothes that you can't do with doll clothes, made a little differently. But the basics are there, and the basics of sewing are what you're going to need to be able to continue to sew doll clothing. And that's that. I hope you guys are looking forward to the next month and all the fun tutorials I'm going to be sharing with you. I know I'm excited to be able to share them. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and comment down below if you have any questions or concerns about how things are going to be working out with the tutorials. And if you're popping around my channel and you like what you see, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you can get notifications when there are new videos. Till next time.